Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is Sam Jacobs. Sam is the author of the new best-selling book, Kind Folks Finish First, The Considerate Path to Success in Business and Life. He believes that helping others shouldn't be a sacrifice, but rather a long-term strategy that can inspire your success, get you prepared to take the exit ramp, change direction, and charge your future with generosity. Sam is also the founder and CEO of Pavilion, a global organization with over 9,000 members and hubs in every major city in the world, with a private membership of leaders of all levels. Through this organization, Sam provides support, assistance, education, and career growth. So this is going to be an excellent discussion today. Sam, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk a little bit about your book, talk a little bit about Pavilion, and basically, what is it that you do and what makes you so amazing?
I don't know that I'm so amazing, but what I do is I run a company, as you mentioned in the bio, called Pavilion. Pavilion we're actually close to, I think this week we'll cross 10,000 members all over the world, primarily focused on revenue. So these are sales leaders, marketing leaders, customer success leaders, people that are talking to customers, that are working with companies, helping them grow. And we provide, we call it a community powered learning platform for those individuals. What that really means is that we provide training, support, and resources to help them grow as professionals, to help them reach the C-suite, to help them eventually become CEOs and leaders, and to in turn help their companies grow more successfully and effectively through their membership with Pavilion. So what that means in practice is we've built Pavilion University, which is basically online training and learning courses in schools focused on revenue growth and sales growth and how to make money for your company. We put on over 100 in-person experiences every single year. I'm actually flying this evening down to Miami, near you, Jeff, to attend our CEO Summit. Close to 100 CEOs, co-founders, COOs, and investors all meeting for a couple of days in Miami to talk business strategy and to plan out 2023. And then the last way that we help people is really trying to build community as a product. And so we put people into groups of 100 to 125 people in their city, in their area. They meet regularly to share best practices and challenges and interact with each other to help and support each other. And that collectively is what Pavilion's all about.
So what's interesting about about this community as a product, right, is this isn't just like a BNI where people just get together and talk about their stuff. Like there are some actionable there are some actionable learning going on, right? This isn't just about hey, show me how you did this, but there's some actual demonstrations and people can really feed off of each other, right?
Yeah, and to your point, a community as a product is actually quite hard to scale because it means something different to everybody. And that's why we have to build products. We have to build tangible experiences that you can evaluate as to whether or not you want to join them or participate them or give money to us for them. So the first one is learning, training, online training, online schools. And that's because people may not know how to evaluate the ROI of community, but they do know how to evaluate the ROI of a certificate of completion or graduation from an online course that help prepare them for their job. And when we're teaching those courses, to your point, Jeff, and to the point of the podcast, we're giving them practical, actionable insights, right? Pavilion has always been differentiated by, yes, there's a theory of the case, and there's values that are articulated in the book that I wrote, but we also need to make sure that we are practical, that we can actually help you be better at your job. And so that's everything from teaching people the math of unit economics and customer acquisition, all the way to, which is also in my book, how to negotiate your executive compensation agreement, what specific clauses you should be asking for, how to modify different employment agreements so that you can protect yourself better. All of that is part of what we deliver in Pavilion because we are focused on helping individuals unlock and achieve their professional potential. But again, what it means in practice, right? The world's a crazy place. It's a volatile place. People need support, particularly right now. Are we in a recession? We don't know. Labor market seems to say we're not in a recession. Seems like we might be heading into at least a technology recession. Coinbase laid off 20% of its employees today. So how do you prepare yourself for this uncertain world? You need something that is an ongoing resource, and that's what Pavilion provides.
The idea of community for me has pivoted a lot, especially over the past 3 4 years, as I migrated from getting in my car every morning and driving down to a WeWork. We have like 3 or 4 WeWorks here in here in Miami, and I would always try to like work in different ones just to get like a different vibe, a different area. See something different. Some have views, others are really close. Closed off, things like that. And then when I moved into this home office slash man cave, right? It just one of the things that I really started to miss was like I'm not really out there interacting with people, right? It's one thing when you go from when you go from working in corporate, 300 people in this big open plan in this big open plan room, to working by yourself and then just facilitating Zoom calls. You really do miss out on some of that, right? And being able to bounce ideas off of your peers is absolutely golden, right? And it's one of those things that after all this craziness died down, it's like, okay, how do I get that magic back? Right? How do I get that magic where I start to network and meet with other people and really, sort of build up that trust. And that's why I love, the idea of building communities, in and around, entrepreneurship and marketing, because you can just get so many great ideas because it's such a vast, such a vast marketplace, that really doesn't, like really doesn't have a lot of competition in terms of, like talking with your peers. Like, I had one guy at at one of those networking events, like, oh, I can't talk to you because we're competitors. And I was like, really? Like, if you really needed to say that, like, you are nowhere near my competitor, right? You are so in my pocket. And there's just so much more to learn from others. So I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask you though, when you're setting up these communities, especially in newer cities, like how does that work in practice? Do you have to like nominate a head of that area and then they go and organize it, or is there like a specific plan that you put together? How does that work?
Yeah, that's certainly the way that we started. We had chapter heads, the concept of a chapter head when we were originally growing, and we would actually be very generous with them. And it was in some ways like a multi-level marketing organization where we would pay those folks a percentage of dues for people that they signed up. Ultimately, we became big enough, and the rev share and the economics weren't working for the business anymore because the folks were sort of sitting on an annuity as opposed to really actively growing the membership. And so we reconstituted the way that we were organized, and now we primarily do it through marketing. But to your point, Jeff, the reality is that you often do need a few key champions within the community in a specific geographic area, but even beyond geography, you might need specific key champions in a specific functional area that you're trying to grow into, or an industry that you're trying to grow into. And so that's why we've created this program called Pavilion Ambassadors. And ambassadors are people that are all public advocates on behalf of Pavilion, both in a lot of different cities, but also in a lot of different companies and a lot of different industries that advocate for our growth, that champion our success, and that help bring on new membership. But fundamentally, if what we're really talking about is what's our growth strategy, growth historically has come from word of mouth. Growth has come from helping people and really making an impact and a difference in their lives, and in the consequence of doing that, really getting people to advocate on our behalf. And that's why a lot of what we try to do is measure the impact of our success through this concept of Net Promoter Score, NPS, which is a pretty well-known metric in a lot of places. Other people don't know it as well, but it's really just trying to understand how happy are people about the work that we're doing and how much do they support us.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the book
Sure.
and why it's so intriguing for me. Kind folks finish first, right? Which sounds almost like the antithesis to sales and marketing, because a lot of it is drilled in your head that you need to be ruthless, you need to go out there and compete, and like success is a contact sport, things like that. But it sounds like you're taking a completely different position on it. Can you talk about that a little bit, about how you came up with that idea and how you're putting that into practice, across your organization?
Sure. Well, the book is really about the founding of the company Pavilion, and the story of the book is the story of my career. And about 5 years ago, I had this moment. I've been fired a lot. I get fired a lot. My last 20 years, I've been working at companies here in New York, technology companies, trying to help them grow in senior leadership positions. And the book arose from this sort of inflection point in my career and my life 5 years ago when I was fired for the second to last time on the New Jersey Turnpike, and I just decided to change how I was approaching things. And the point of Kind Folks Finish First is just really about an approach to life and an approach to your career that, to your point, Jeff, is in some ways the antithesis of everything that we've been taught. It doesn't mean be foolish, and it doesn't mean be naive, and it doesn't really mean be completely innocent. What it means is that if you can stop keeping score, if you can believe in a non-zero sum world, and there's a lot of macroeconomic factors that might impact your success on any given day relative to not keeping score. But in general, my life changed when I decided to stop keeping score. And by keeping score, meaning every time I helped somebody, I didn't need to send them an invoice, right? I realized over the course of the last 5 years, which is really the values that we've built Pavilion with, that helping other people is not just a thing that you can do to feel good about yourself, but it's a thing that you can do to advance your career. And how is that true? It's because in the act of not keeping score, in the act of giving more than you take in the act of helping other people succeed, helping them find a job, but not needing a 10% finder's fee, what you do is you differentiate yourself. You differentiate yourself as somebody that is different from every other person on the street, that is constantly chiseling, constantly sending an invoice every time they shake your hand, constantly saying, I made that introduction, can you send me 10%? That's the way that most of the world operates. And so if you're thinking about differentiation in a competitive world, one of the ways you can differentiate yourself is by being long-term focused, right? Kind Folks Finish First. The funny story behind the writing of the book is that when I was pitching it to the publishers, they said, do you really need it to say Kind Folks Finish First? Is it maybe the kindness principle? Is it the value of kindness, right? It's not really about finishing first. It's about the fact that, you feel good at night and money isn't everything and success isn't everything. And I said, no, you're missing the point. That's actually completely opposite to what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that this is a path to professional success. It's not just about sleeping better at night. The point of the book isn't, and tries to give you very practical, actionable tips to the point, again, of your podcast. The point isn't like, be a good person, help people out, help the old lady cross the street, and you'll sleep better at night. You'll still get passed over for promotion, but professional success isn't all that it's cracked up to be anyway. That is not the message of the book. The message of the book is be ambitious, try your hardest, be diligent, but in so doing, you can be different. You can look different. You can be different and separate yourself from the pack by investing in kindness, by building relationships, not transactions. What does building relationships, not transactions means? Specifically, again, to the point of like being practical, it means, why don't you go out and help people find a job? We've got a layoff coming. Instead of becoming an executive recruiter, why don't you just help people find a job and not ask anything for them? Why don't you make connections between somebody like you, Jeff, that's a digital marketing expert, and somebody that needs digital marketing expertise? And again, don't start a business from it. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a broker of some kind and take 10%, but just start making connections to people, between people that need things, and don't ask for anything. And try that for a year. Try that for 1 year, just making connections, helping people out. Every time they email you and say, hey, do you have 30 minutes to hop on the phone? Instead of your instinct, which is to say, sure, but my hourly rate is $250, just get on the phone with them anyway and try it for a year and see what happens. In my experience, when I began living my life that way, that doesn't mean don't have a business. It doesn't mean don't sell, it doesn't mean money's evil. It doesn't mean don't charge for your services, but it means if it's not your core business, then maybe try to do as much as you can outside of that where you don't charge anything, so that you can create goodwill, invest in karma, and then watch what comes back to you. And when I took that approach over the course of the last 5 years, that was ultimately the thing, that was the idea and the philosophy that led to Pavilion success, in my opinion.
That is a really great story, because one of the things I noticed when I started taking, as you said, like every call, even if I knew going into it that I'm not going to convert this guy, right? Or he's not my client, or, it's not going to work. But, maybe if I can even save them from making a stupid mistake, right? That was always my mantra. And I would be very verbose about it during those calls. like when you have like this new company that I don't know, they want to, they want to hire me for SEO services, and they want to be top ranked, but I have a really small budget. It's like, listen, do me a favor. Don't hire me, but don't hire anyone else either. Okay. Save your money, right? Because anyone else, there are a lot of people that will take your money, and you'll find out 6 months down the line that it's just not effective. Right. And I told them that 2, 3, 5 years from now, you will remember my name as the one who spoke the truth. Right. You
I
will
think
remember that I was
that's
the one that
exactly
taught you,
right.
that I taught you correctly. And, then you will be ready to pay me, what I'm worth. But in the meantime, please, you have my phone number, you have my email, hit me up with any questions. And what happens is those people come back,
Of
and it's
course they do.
amazing. They come back, and they come, at least in my experience, at the times I least expect it. Right. Like maybe I'm having a bad month, where I don't have enough revenue coming in. Then this guy I spoke to 2.5 years ago, like, hey, I started this new business going really well. Now I'm ready to hire you. Okay, great. Let's get to work. And the thing is that, like you said, to the point of karma, it builds up, it builds up great energy. It builds up a lot of trust, and really establishes you as an expert, an expert in your field. You know, One of the things, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this. How then does do these communities, these masterminds that you put together, then flow into that part of giving back? So is it just so it's not just a bunch of people sharing information like, oh, here's how I did it, here's how you should do it, type thing. But there's more than that as well, right? There's more in terms of being able to get together and just bounce some ideas off of. And sometimes, even if it's not 100% revenue related, right? How does that dynamic play out within your organization?
Well, to your point, it's not just people. I mean, first of all, in its core essence, it is probably just people saying, here's how I did this and here's how I did that. But I think the key to it is structure. And that's what effectively people pay for. What they're really paying for is they're paying for moderation and curation, so that you feel like you're part of an exercise that yields some kind of specific outcome. So again, that's why we built these online learning courses. Last year we had 12,000 total enrollments and 6,000 unique students go through Pavilion University. And why did we create Pavilion University? Because just bouncing around and saying, how'd you do this and how'd you do that is not quite as useful as saying, hey, we have all of these experts. Let's build structured content that we'll call a course, and let's have you experience that content, take notes, answer questions, take a test. And that way, you know exactly what you're going to learn, you know exactly what you're going to get, and you have a tangible result at the end of it, which is a certificate of completion that we can help you market and promote. And so we've taken sort of the idea of like people, like-minded people, which is effectively community, right? Like-minded people with shared goals and values coming together to help and support each other. We've taken that general idea and then said, how do we create structure so that people can get something specific and tangible out of it? So one example is our Pavilion University programming, which again, as I mentioned, over 6,000 students last year. And then another is like the simple structure of our in-person interactions, right? So we do over 100 dinners a year, salon-style thought leadership dinners, 15 to 20 people sitting around a big table having a conversation. But it's not just sit down, sit wherever you want, start talking. We've all been to those kinds of work dinners where whoever you're sitting next to ends up being the determinant of whether or not you have a good event or not, because there's a million different conversations happening at the table and nobody's really steering the conversation. So we actually have a playbook for how we run a dinner, right? So that there's only one person talking at a time. We say no crosstalk through desserts. We make sure that people come ready to talk about their challenges. We break it up into 15-minute segments where people share case studies from their work and everybody contributes. And we really provide a lot of coherent structure into this regular dinner, right? It's all it is a dinner. You'd think there wouldn't be that much of a recipe into making a great event, but it turns out there is. And so again, we take the, community is the input, not the output. That's sort of like one of the interesting parts of it. Community is the atomic fuel that turns into products that we build. And that's why we call it community powered learning. And we call ourselves a community powered learning platform, because we feel like community is the input and learning. Why do we come together in communities? I think Learning isn't all of it, because there's an emotional component, to your point about being in your man cave and kind of feeling alone, feeling lonely and feeling like, where is the world and where are my people? So there's a point to that. But I think the essence of community is about, how do I get better at doing what I need to do to support my family, to achieve my professional goals? And that's why we call it community powered.
I love it. Sam, thank you so much for articulating that. Can you please take a minute and let everyone know how they can learn more about your company and
Yeah, of
how they can
course.
reach out to you directly if they have any questions?
Well, you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'll have over 40,000 followers as of the end of this week, I think. You can email me, sam@joinpavilion.com, and you can actually become a member at the website that you see on the screen. If you do become a member, what I would advise you to do, there's sort of 3 elements to the product set within Pavilion. The first is, like I said, take a class, right? We found that members that take at least 2 classes over the course of a year tend to be happier than those that don't. I would also mark on your calendar one of our big events. I'm going to the CEO Summit this evening, but the next big events, there's 3 big events that are coming up this year: a CMO Summit in San Francisco in March, a CRO Summit in June in London, and then Go to Market 2023, our first big all-encompassing conference, which is happening in Nashville, Tennessee, October 8th through 10th. All of those are open for registration. Go to Market will open on Thursday at the CEO Summit, just for CEOs initially, but everybody should come. So take a class, attend an event, and then be active in your local community. And if you do those 3 things, I think you'll be very happy. You can learn more at joinpavilion.com.
I love it. Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a very interesting discussion. I really appreciate the energy and you articulating, really what it takes to create a community and make it actionable, make it something that, that you can feel and use and implement in your own business. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Been great to be here.